So on this write-write exercise, we're returning to some basics of the English language. The big question is, what's a sentence? What isn't? And when we come across something that looks like a sentence but isn't, how do we fix it? So, as we know, a sentence requires two elements. It requires a subject and it requires a verb. Pretty simple, but sometimes we don't see one or the other and it's still a sentence, and sometimes we see both and it's not. For instance, in the first one, if we look at it, we see the word you, which is a subject, and we see the word drive, which is a verb. So we might think, well, that's okay. We're good to go. But actually, it's not okay. If we look carefully, we see the sentence starts with a subordinating conjunction, whether. So that means this needs to be joined to another clause that can stand on its own. So in this case, we need to know what other information we have in order to make it a full sentence. So what we have here is a fragment. In the second one, we have a complete independent clause starting with in a market through strategy, and then another one starting with we through one. So we basically have two sentences joined together with a comma. Some people call it a comma splice, but more technically correct is calling it a fused sentence. So how do we fix it? Well, this one's easy. We can just replace the comma here with a period and make it into two sentences. On the third one, this seems like a lot of words. Maybe it's something beyond a sentence, but let's look at it carefully. The subject here is actually three parts: expanded tax credits, additional funds, and provision for increasing ratios, all of which are governed by the same verb, are. So it would be like saying three people's names, Paul, Mary, and John, are the planners. So this is fine. It's just multiple subjects governed by the same verb. So this is a sentence. Number 4, we have another case where we have starting with a coordinating conjunction, which. So if we had a word there like that in place of this, this would be a sentence. So all we have to do in this one, which right now is a fragment, is change which to that, and we have a sentence. Next one looks a little tricky, but it really isn't. We have a subject, he. We have a verb, said. We have what the person said, so that's our object, if you will. And then we have an attribution for the whole thing. So this really is a simple sentence. It just looks like more than that because of the commas in here. The next one has a subject, a shampoo, but the shampoo didn't do anything, so there's no verb. So this is a fragment. Now, that's not to say we can never use a fragment. Actually, in advertising, we see fragments used a lot. But if you use a fragment, you have to know you're using a fragment and use it for a purpose. In number 7, we have the same problem we had in number 2. We have a complete independent clause followed by another complete independent clause joined by only a comma. So we have a fused sentence. Again, if we just replace this period, this comma with a period rather, and capitalize the H, we're good. Number 8, get hooked on reading. Well, who's the subject? Well, actually, this is a case where the subject is understood. You're talking to the reader, so you're saying, you get hooked on reading. So this is a complete sentence. It's fine. Number 7 on first glance might look like it's not a sentence, but if you look at the main part of it, the company subject assumes verb, and it's preceded by an introductory phrase. That has nothing to do with the sentence itself. So this one's simple sentence. And the final one, it is subject and verb together, part of the learning process that leads us to quality, another sentence. So the final question here is, how short can a sentence be? Can you come up with a sentence that's shorter than all of these? you should be able to come up with a sentence that's very, very short.